More of these stories at townhall.com. I'm John Scott.
The following is an American Matters Media production. The views expressed do not necessarily represent those of the station or its advertisers, although we think they should. But that's the opinion of American Matters Media.
This is not America. Sha-la-la-la-la. Little piece of you.
Hi, welcome to Talking Truth to Power, Nevada's Freedom Talk Radio. I am your host, Brendan Trainor, and my co-host, Leland Faegre, drove down from beautiful Lake Tahoe.
You know, I always love that commute.
Yes.
Coming into the biggest little city. And this morning, you know, the electronic marquee there at Cave Rock, there's always a sign, or often it says, you know, bikes in the tunnel.
Right.
There was actually a bike in the tunnel. That never happens.
All right. So we have a lot to talk about, even though Congress is not in session. Boy, President Trump is. And so
You'd never know it by the dialogue. Huh?
Yeah. And the biggest story I'd like to talk about here, because we do talk truth to power, and this is you better call the security in.
Yeah, I'm just about to.
Yeah. Okay. Because I'd like to start off with a quote by Gilad Atzmon. He is a writer and musician and a non-Zionist Jew who is whenever he performs with his band, he is picketed by the Zionist Jews, and sometimes they get his events canceled.
You've quoted him before.
Yes. Oh, yeah. He's an excellent writer, and I recommend you read his columns or on the UN's Review naturally carries his work. But the quote I want to say is, Jewish power is the power to suppress discussion of Jewish power. Mm-hmm. And we have seen a crack.
I think everybody knows that.
We have seen a crack in the wall this week because a couple of weeks ago, almost no Americans have even heard of boycott and divest, the BDS movement. And now, suddenly, thanks to Donald Trump and Bibi primarily, millions of Americans at least know what it stands for. And that is a bit of a progress there. Of course, we had, the Congresswoman, the Muslim, Ilhan Omar, if I got her name right, because I'm not very sharp with names,
The hijabbed one?
Yes, the hijabbed one. And Tlaib, the Palestinian, they got into Rashid. They got into a bit of a kerfuffle.
God, she's beautiful.
Yes. No. Actually, Omar is kind of attractive in a petite sort of way, but not so much. Yeah.
God,
all right.
she is.
I don't want to be sexist, though. We're not talking about.
No, I'm not
physical
talking about
beauty.
her appearance.
Oh, okay. Oh, no, of course, we disagree with 90% of their views because they are on the very far left, but it's so unfortunate that these people from lands that the West has occupied have to turn to socialism as the way to oppose, the power structures that they feel are out there instead of, more classical liberal approaches.
Mm-hmm.
But
and that really is what we should be discussing: is how did this happen?
Yeah.
How did this movement gain the traction that it has? That should be the main topic for discussion.
Well, I think we're getting off the point here for a moment, but I think JFK.
Well, I think that is the point.
I think JFK recognized it. I think he recognized that Vietnam was a nationalist movement even before it was a communist movement. Mm-hmm. And you could say the same thing about Mao Zedong. Now maybe they used horrible means to get to their ends, but they were formed in nationalism, which is the current event that we have as the current ideology that many of us have as opposed to globalism. Mm-hmm. And the only thing is they took the wrong path. They took the communist and socialist path to oppose nationalism. And, it's easier because nobody really wants to go about reducing the size of government, it seems. Everybody wants to increase government as a solution.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but at any rate, despite their socialism, they did make some valid points. And it caused a lot of discussion in the mainstream media, and most of it, of course, is papering over the real issues. But at least people are finally discussing this, and that's a good thing. to discuss Israel and Zionism and what is anti-Semitism and all of these things that are hidden. Maybe Miss Williamson, the Democratic candidate, would talk about the undercurrents and that are underneath the surface. And she is Jewish. She's also a Zionist and a secular Jewish. She has a Eastern European name, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. But I could look it up sometime. But anyway, she is one of those liberal Zionists that believe the whole problem is the right-wing government, the Bibi Netanyahu and his right-wing government. And that's really only a symptom. The problem is the Zionist project itself.
Well, yes, but more to the point, I think, about all of this discussion is the admonition of the framers, almost to a man,
yes,
that we avoid entangling alliances.
Right.
That's really what
and
this
special
comes down.
relationships.
Yeah, all of that
with countries.
Yeah.
Yes, or special hatreds, like George Washington's farewell address is.
It is our true policy.
Yes, that should be the true policy of America, to be neutral.
To steer clear of permanent alliances with any portion of the foreign world.
Right, and to lead by example rather than by using force.
Exactly.
And so this is, this finally is getting some attention, and we do have a Democratic candidate, Tulsi Gabbard, that's bringing up some of these points in a very forceful way, and we're very grateful for that as non-interventionists here on Talking Truth to Power. But, it doesn't matter whether you have a D or an R after your name, or whether you are
or an
Jewish, or an L, yep, or even a G. But it's the point is that we have to get back to the original foreign policy vision that this country was built on, and we have to stop making false claims and about other countries and engaging in covering up the faults of other countries while extolling the supposed virtues. And it's only damaging ourselves. It's damaging the fiber of our country, and it's damaging our wealth. We wasted so much money on this issue, and we'll talk about it after the break.
We're talking to Victor from Precision Diamonds. Victor, we have talked before about the fact that you started 27 years ago in Park Lane Mall in a little kiosk. You are now in your own building across the street from the convention center.
This is America Matters Media on AM 1180 KCKQ, a Lotus broadcast station. The power of radio since 1967.
Unable to listen to the whole show? A recording of today's program will be available later today. Visit americamatters.us and click on the podcast link. Now back to the show.
Hi, welcome back to Talking Truth to Power, Nevada's Freedom Talk Radio. I am your host, Brendan Trainor, and my co-host here, Leland Faegre. And we were talking about the stir over the anti-Semitic supposed policy espoused by our two congresswomen, Ilhan Omar and Rashid Tlaib.
God, she's beautiful.
Yes. And
there was a stir? You say there was a stir?
Yeah, it was.
Oh, okay.
Rashid's grandmother was called Sisi, so she called her Sisi, so we could say it was Sisi versus Bibi.
Oh, I love that. Is that your own?
Yeah, that's my own.
That's why you're an award-winning writer.
Okay. So I noticed Fox. I noticed the coverage, and I didn't see any Palestinians or non-Zionist Jewish people on Fox. I did see a few Palestinian spokespeople on MSNBC and CNN, but mostly they were there to bash Trump's policies, not really to explain what was going on in the country. But one of the guests that Tammy Bruce, who guest hosted for Tucker Carlson, had on was a Miss Goldstein from a neocon pro-Israel think tank, Fox, Fair and Balanced.
Actually, I think she's a member of the Council on Foreign Relations as well.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I'm pretty sure that I know who you're talking about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So she was on, and she actually brought up on her own the issue of blood Passover. and how that was because anti-Semitism is on the rise, according to these people. But in fact, most people say that the FBI statistics are skewed because of the fact that they're keeping so much more statistics. They're gathering so many more facts. Yeah, it's quantity rather than quality. But at any rate, be that as it may, I was very surprised when she brought up the blood Passover, because I don't know who mentioned blood Passover. Very few people do. But the blood Passover is the story of in 2007, a Jewish professor named Ariel Toph, who was the son of a Jewish rabbi and a professor at a Jewish university, he wrote a book called The Bloody Satanic Sacrifice Rituals of the Jewish Race, which sounds like something that maybe...
That's got New York Times bestseller all over it.
Yeah. But... in which he claimed that his review of the evidence indicated that medieval Jews, some of them, perpetrated ritual killings of Goy children to obtain their blood for Passover rituals. And they would spread the actual blood of children on the doors instead of lamb's blood. For Passover, that the Jews celebrate Passover, they put because when Jesus said he would kill the firstborn son of the Egyptians, he passed over any house that had lamb's blood on the doorway, and only killed the Egyptian children.
Is that where the term Passover comes from?
Yes, that's where it comes from. Exactly. And but to use children's blood, and also make bloody matzah balls or matzah bread, unleavened bread out of.
It's easy for you to say.
Yeah, I know. I mean, so. She's claimed that this accusation was a symptom of the rising tide of anti-Semitism, but the fact is that I don't know who talks about this. I mean, I think by even bringing this up, she brought up, uncovered an old wound here. But what happened was that, in particular, in 1475 in Trent, Italy, a 2-year-old boy named Simon was kidnapped right before Passover, and then his body was found drained of blood, and it caused immediate uproar in the Christian community. And Professor Toph looked at all the evidence, and he concluded that the perpetrators were not in any way tortured into a confession, and that they knew things that ordinary Italian Jews did not know. They were Ashkenazi Jews, and they were extreme Ashkenazi Jews, and that they had an extreme hatred of Christianity. And nobody knows how many of these blood Passover stories are real and how many are hysteria. Because, there is a certain amount of hysteria that in a Christian relationship with the Jews over the years, both sides have accused the others of atrocities, some of which are true and some of which are probably made up. But at any rate, the way I look at this is that this whole thing is a cover-up, a clever way of covering up the fact that the Jews and their new best friends forever, the Saudis, have been accused of killing more children in 2018 than any other country. And the United States typically vetoed a resolution at the UN Security Council condemning them for it. And they don't want to, the Jewish state of Israel has probably killed more Palestinian children than any of the medieval sorcerers associated with the blood Passover rituals.
And what year was that?
It's 1475, yes.
1475. So that was after the printing press.
Yeah.
Just after.
Yeah, just after.
Mm-hmm. Pretty interesting, huh?
Yeah. And so this is just exposing once again a lot of the myths that we have concerning Israel that we really need to discuss. And we don't have to discuss about things that happened 500 years ago. We really should be discussing. No. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, it does show that, in fact, the Talmudic Jews do have a real hatred for Christianity. If you've ever read the Talmud, and I doubt very many people have, it's full of anti-Christian bias. And if you read the...
You mean like me?
Yeah, like you. only even more virulent.
I hate them all.
Yeah. But for example, that Jesus is boiling an excrement for eternity is a phrase that's in the Talmud. And
That long?
Yeah, and that Mary is a whore, and the virgin birth was she was impregnated by a demon during her menstrual cycle. That, the Orthodox Jews, like most of the ancient Abrahamic religions, are obsessed with a woman's menstrual cycles,
No, I did not know
Yeah,
that.
that's true.
Yeah.
And so Jewish women are supposed to purify themselves every time they have a menstrual period by bathing, ritual bathing.
Well,
but
wouldn't they do that anyway?
well, this is a ritual bathing. It's a specific type of bathing that they have to undergo after every
see.
period in order to purify themselves.
You might want to send your kids into the other room.
Yeah, I know it's lunch hour, but at any rate, if perhaps this Jewish woman emerges from her ritual bath and the first thing she sees is a Christian, she has to go back and do the ritual bathing.
Do the ritual bathing again?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that is a little bit burdensome, isn't it?
Yeah. But, and burdensome is a good word because, burdensome.
Some of this stuff is just beyond comprehension.
I know.
Stupid,
I know. I know.
Where does this?
Well, it's to keep them separate. Many people would argue that anytime you have a religion that goes out of its way to have a dietary regime, a strict dietary regime, and other, like you can't talk to anybody one day of the week, supposedly, or do anything, it's done to keep them separate from the population at large.
Well, that makes sense, but it's so superstitious. I mean, and it came from an era whose main theme pretty much was superstition,
right?
Which was what the Age of Enlightenment did for civilization, is it took us out of that.
Exactly.
So it really is amazing to think back on that and how intractable has this become that we're still talking about this nonsense.
Oh yeah.
It is just absolutely.
Well, that's the power of religion. Religion has a deep subliminal, unconscious power through the as a Jungian, I would say, through the basic human archetypes that manifest themselves in this type of ritual. And, a lot of it can be dispelled with science, of course, and reason. That was the whole purpose
all
of the
of it
Enlightenment.
can be.
All of it. I mean, there are some people that are going to believe in fortune telling and ghosts and everything else, and maybe there is some truth.
They're free to do that. But, let's talk about the evidence first. Can we do that?
Yeah, I know.
Is that permissible? Jesus.
And people don't have no idea that the Old Testament is not the primary Jewish book, since they returned from the Babylonian captivity and founded the Second Temple. The primary book is the Babylonian Talmud, which was not written down until hundreds of years later, but it was when the basis for the Jewish faith now is the Talmud and not the Tanakh, which is what their name for the Old Testament is, except for a few Jews that are anti-Zionists, like the Karaite Jews, who are strictly called Torah Jews, and all they believe in is the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible, and they do not believe in the Talmud.
I think I met a couple of those people in Montana a few years ago.
They are Orthodox. They wear the typical Orthodox black hat and curls and everything else, but they are not Zionists.
I thought they were making a movie.
And they've been
by.
They've been persecuted by the Talmudic Jews to a great extent throughout their existence. But the Talmud is full of superstition, and not only that, but the other book, the part of the Jewish religion, is the Kabbalah. And that is extremely full of rituals and superstitions. And what Professor Tolf revealed was that many rabbis were actually wizards and magicians, like alchemists.
Of course,
and you don't think of that when you think about the rabbis and their prayer shawls.
I knew that.
You don't think about that. But Professor Tolf was harassed. He was lost his job. He feared for his life, and so finally he recanted and said he was wrong. But to even bring this up on TV, this 500-year-old controversy, I think it's beginning to show that there are cracks in the narrative.
Well, here's another addition to that line of thought. Did you hear about that strange light over Nevada?
Oh, yeah, no.
Whatever you do, people, don't go away.
Virginia City is the source of all the richness in the West, while today it brings us a summer of fun with camel races, cook-offs, street vibrations, outhouse races, parades, and many more events. It's never dull.
This is America Matters Media on AM 1180 KCKQ, a Lotus broadcast station. The power of radio since 1967.
To join the conversation, call 844-790-TALK. That's 844-790-8255. Now, back to the show.
Hello, welcome back to Talking Truth to Power, Nevada's Freedom Talk Radio. I am your host, Brendan Trainor, my co-host, Leland Faegre, and we have this...
You know, we were to have had, I called our Congressman Amadei's office yesterday because he was to have been on, I think he was on our competitor's station this morning, KOH.
Okay.
And we got close to having Amadei with us this morning, but he had a conflict, so he couldn't attend. But we have Kelly Rush instead of Congressman Amadei this morning.
Oh, close.
Yeah. Who needs Amadei when we've got Kelly Rush?
Well, thank you so much for having me, you guys. You know, I've been trying to get here for weeks, and I was on time today. I'm so upset. And
we tried to pull you in a few times.
And just, you know, I recently became the CEO of America Matters Media, which I'm so proud of.
Do you want to go into that? Because I'd kind of like to know about that.
Ask away.
Oh,
Let me know what anything you want to know
about
the
dynamic
myself
of
or
that.
the company.
Yeah, and your background prior to coming on board.
Oh, my
here.
goodness. Gosh, do we have time?
Oh, sure.
I am originally from suburban Philadelphia, and
Well, we won't hold that against you.
Yeah.
The city of brotherly love.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm a direct descendant of Benjamin Rush, co-drafter of the Constitution,
okay.
signer of the Declaration.
How about that?
Fourth column over, second signature down. So I grew up, surrounded by the classic symbols of liberty that define this nation, while every damn day those jerks in D.C. take our freedoms away and charge us for it.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What we have today that we call government is nothing like the beautiful blueprint that we were given by our founding fathers.
Yes.
Well, they don't appreciate it.
They've never read it, most of them.
No. Nor would they at this point.
No.
They're not interested.
No. So, this is very personal to me, what we're talking about here, what you guys deal with here at
Especially
Talking
as
Truth to Power.
Benjamin Rush's role in the issue of race and slavery at the time was integral to independence.
Sure. He and Benjamin Franklin were best friends, and they were brilliant men. I mean, Benjamin Rush was the founder of modern psychiatry, the first one to recognize alcoholism as a physical disease, and I believe that's because heavy mental illness and alcoholism ran in the Rush family. Now, I say I'm a direct descendant. I'm adopted. My father, so it's
not blood, but
blood.
It's legal.
But it's absolutely legal, and I believe we're not going to go into my beliefs spiritually and about
we're not
well, not today.
Oh,
we can if you want to have me on for the next several years.
Why not? We talk about everything else.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying it'll take up too much time, but I absolutely believe that we are of creation, and religion is of man, spirituality is of God, and how we descend is not of this meat suit and blood and physicality. So I believe I am a direct descendant of Benjamin Rush. I have his spirit in my soul.
You get no
doubt.
argument from me.
No doubt. And so, to the point where it made me run for United States Congress in 2000 because I knew something wasn't right about what's going on, and I couldn't figure out what it was just by doing the research and asking questions of the people that I had available to me. So I needed some sort of inside view. So I'm from suburban Philadelphia. That's where I grew up. My educational background was that I went to a 2-year school for 3.5 years and still don't have a degree because I get bored real easy.
Yeah.
Me too.
I hear you. Yeah.
Either that or they'd show me the exits.
Well, yeah. I mean, and at the time I'm 51 years old. I am a child of the 80s, and when I graduated high school in 86 and was, venturing into college, it was also the dawn of the personal computing era. The very beginnings of it.
I was thinking it was the dawning of the age of Aquarius.
That was over. We were done with that.
Yeah, that was what I lived through.
It was hair bands and PCs and MTV. So so I was very interested in computers, but computer education was very behind. It was mainframe programming and COBOL and Fortran.
And slow.
And slow. And I still can't program my way out of a paper bag. And it just wasn't, I knew mainframe wasn't it, but personal computers to purchase were around $3,000 or so. And so I worked for a call center that got the Prodigy test market account. And do you remember what Prodigy was?
Oh, I remember.
That's a dial-up service.
Yeah.
And yeah, so
I love that sound.
I did too. I heard it in my sleep. So anyway, fast forward, I got a computer, self-taught, became an IT consultant, and also at the same time was a rock journalist in the hard rock and heavy metal industry. So,
you didn't mean geology?
No.
Oh.
Although when I was a little girl, I thought I wanted to be a geologist until I realized they didn't play with pretty rocks. They looked for water and oil. I wanted to be a gemologist.
Right.
So I ended up, I was, kind of fiddle-farted around as a glorified secretary, and then worked my way through being a tech support person, and then into management and IT consulting, and, moved to Dallas, Texas, and that's when I ran for Congress. The Libertarian Party was extraordinarily strong there because of Ron Paul. That's where his base was.
Sure. Was it in his district?
No,
I'm
in Dallas.
He's more in Galveston and Houston area. Yeah.
But what happened was when I became, when I was doing IT consulting, at one point I went from making $50,000 a year to $50 an hour, and all of a sudden 40% of my check was missing before I even got the piece of paper. So I started looking for tax protest websites, and that's when I stumbled across the Libertarian Party, and was like, this, because I'd started voting the minute I turned 18, couldn't wait. Daddy Bush Jr. was, I was.
Oh yeah.
And because
we all remember that.
Yeah, because that's what my parents were. That's what you do when you first start. You're always what your parents are. And then of course I switched to, causes, and I'm going to save the world. And then no, that's not what I am. So libertarian. This is wow. Other than at the time open borders and all drugs, legalize all drugs. I was all in. Yeah. And I still open borders, but of course, I'm all on board too with every. So they approached me. My ex and I joined the party. We were gung ho, and we were young. I was young 30s. He was 11 years younger. Don't ask. So they approached me and said, "Would you consider running against Eddie Bernice Johnson, District 30?" And I said, well...
He was entrenched?
She.
I didn't know who it was. I just...
Yeah, no, I'll tell you. So, I'll tell you. She... so anyway, I said, well, I'm not going to, collect money or donations or tell anybody I have a chance to win. And they said, no. We just want an L on every ballot in the state.
Yeah, paper candidate,
Paper candidate is what they said.
Brendan and I have fallen for that as well.
Well, and I said... I will do speeches, I'll do outreach, I will.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I did debates.
I'll do everything but collect money or tell anybody I have a chance to win.
Okay.
Sign me up. And I did. And I absolutely said, because there's something's not right, and I want to know what's going on.
Right. I don't know how many times I've told people that we don't run to win. We know we're not going to win.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. And
except here in Nevada, we did have one candidate that almost won.
We had
and
several.
There was a couple in Alaska too.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it's just as rare as.
Well, and I would, in certain races, I'd say, yeah, absolutely, I run to win, but I won't. I won't take money, help me with outreach, and it doesn't take money. It doesn't have to take money. But so I said I just want to see if I just want to know what's going on. I just want information. And I figured it out. It's rigged. And no, it ain't the Russians.
No.
It's computers. I'm an IT consultant. I saw it immediately. And it has nothing to do with the internet.
Right. In much the same way that newspapers were once upon a time.
When I voted because when I voted in Pennsylvania, it was a long time ago. It was a whole different deal. But when I voted in Texas and I took a Nintendo cartridge from some random person as I walked in the door and stuck it in a machine, pressed a couple of buttons, didn't get a piece of paper, didn't get any kind of confirmation, didn't do anything that I could walk away with any kind of verification, I went, there it is right there.
Yes.
There it is.
It's not who votes that counts, it's who counts the votes.
Absolutely. And when they were calling candidates in broad daylight on the news, as I got home, they're already saying,
yeah.
So, I was like, oh, there it is. We don't elect anybody. And then I read Shadows of Power.
Oh, that was, what was
by Perlman.
Yes. Yeah, right. I read that very early on. That was pretty much the sequel to None Dare Call It Conspiracy by Gary Allen.
Okay.
Oh, I haven't read that. I haven't read that. I'll have to read that.
Yeah.
But, and then I read Vote Scam.
It brought it up to date
by the Collier brothers, who are both dead, of course, now. So, it was over for me then. I knew after the 2000, and then once Bush and Cheney, when Cheney was announced as the VP, I went, here we go again.
But you see, now that neocon member...
Then 9/11, and then TSA, NSA,
We're coming up on a break, ladies and gentlemen. Whatever you do, don't go away.
my ex...
Carson City Motorsports presents professional short track motorcycle races.
You're invited to join Business Connections with Anita every Wednesday from 10 to 11 a.m. here on 1180 a.m. KCKQ America Matters.
Are you shy and don't want to talk on the air? Text us your questions or comments to 775-237-2266. Now back to the show.
To Talking Truth to Power, Nevada's Freedom Talk Radio. I'm your host, Brendan Trainor, my co-host, Leland Faegre, and our special guest.
And we have Kelly Rush with us, who has a show here on America Matters Media. You want to tell us about the show? And then I'm also intrigued about how you came to be
here at America Matters. Yeah, we'll get to that next. And of course, my name is Kelly Rush, and my show is Rush Hour Radio Show, and it's
clever.
5 to 6
o'clock. That's really clever.
Rush hour. See what I did
Where'd
there?
that come from? How'd you come up with that?
It was kind of hard. I noodled on that for a while, and just all of a sudden.
So you said you came up with your last name as a way to describe the show. That's just. That is just something else, isn't it?
It's funny when I was writing. I've always hated my name, Kelly Rush, because I used to weigh 260 pounds, and
really,
yeah, wow. all through growing up, I was just fat and gawky and awkward and just a complete geek and just bullied unmercifully. I'm an only child and just I've always just been an outcast. And with a name like Kelly Rush, when you're fat, jelly, belly, rush, flush, they just
didn't think of that.
Nailed me. Yeah. And I hated my name. And when I lost all the weight, when I got out of school and toned it up a bit and looked much better when I was in the rock and roll world. And when I was interviewing all these rock stars, so many of them caught me off guard. They would say, "Man, where'd you get a name like Kelly Rush?" And I'm like, "What?" And
it does have a show business
marquee.
Where
did you come up with that? And I said, "That's my real name."
Kind of a style.
I'm like, and they're like, "No," and I'm like, "Yes, seriously." And they're like, "Wow, you should be famous with a name like that." And I'm like, "Really?" And after the sixth, honest to God, the sixth time, I was finally, I'm like, All right, I'll roll with it.
You know, broadcasters.
I finally got used to it.
Broadcasters come up with names like that. Oh, wait a minute, you are a broadcaster.
There you go.
Perfect.
And yeah, I did college in community radio back home, but it was never, like my thing. I mean, I would have loved to have done. I've been, a radio hag since I was like 4 years old, calling in and requesting songs for the local station.
My dad was an advertiser with RKO in Los Angeles.
You're kidding.
Yeah. I grew up with radio.
I mean, you have thing in Tahoe.
My conversations with my father were about the LA radio market, which was fascinating.
Oh yeah.
At least in those days. I don't know what it's like anymore.
KLOS. I mean, I've been a radio hag my entire
Ken Minyard
life.
and 8KBC Talk Radio. Larry Elder came out of there. I mean, it was an enormous market, and there was always something going on. It was amazing to watch. I should say it's amazing to listen to.
Sure.
But there was a lot of visuals associated with radio as well, because it is a visual market. So.
Well, it's funny because now we do this Facebook Live thing, and the YouTube video. We broadcast over.
We're doing it now.
Yeah, we can do that, and we can do that from here too. And it's when I was younger. Did you ever go to the late night Rocky Horror?
I actually attended the very last show of the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Did you?
Yeah, because I was close to someone who worked at KMET.
Oh, neat.
Yeah.
Well, we had when I was a teenager. And a little bit older, we had a movie theater that played it at midnight on weekends, and my best friend and I would go, and you did the whole thing where you shouted and you threw the toast and the toilet paper and all that. Do you know what that was?
I don't remember that.
Oh yeah, there was a whole thing, a revival. In the 80s, where they would play it at theaters, and people would go and dress up and act it out in the front and in the aisles, and we'd get up and dance and do the thing.
Remember that revisited it. Yeah.
And you'd yell at the screen like it would because it was so B. It was so B theater, and the lines were so dumb. So Frank would say stuff, and you'd yell like stuff back, and one of it at the end, it in the pool, and then the last thing, it would come up with an RKO radio picture, and I came up.
Was that the old image, the old graphic?
The old graphic,
right?
And I actually came up with a line at our theater. Because I was so confused. I was a newbie, and you're not supposed to be. You're not supposed to let on that
you're not supposed to be new.
No, because they bombard you. And I was good because I had studied and I knew all the lines, so I was good up to that point. And I actually came up with a line. I said, "What the F's a radio picture?" And I made the whole theater laugh. And after that, everybody started shouting that. And now we have radio pictures.
Yeah.
And I thought of that the other night. I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I think that's actually really cool. So back to
So that was
American
a seminal
Matters.
moment, not just for the Rocky Horror Picture Show, but for you.
Kinda.
Yeah.
Kinda. Because I kind of lost. I lost a little bit of geekness that day.
And does that take us to the Lotus Broadcasting?
Yeah, let's coming back to American Matters. So I got here in May of 2013, so 6.5 years ago. When I got here, I was a licensed massage therapist. One of my 8 careers, and I was trying to transfer my license from Texas, and normally it only takes a couple months. Well, it took me longer because of some extra documentation I needed. So it took me, I had to get a job in the meantime because I couldn't practice. So I was working for some CPAs near my house, and I got laid off after tax season. No big deal. So in order to collect unemployment,
doesn't
you have to
everybody
register.
get laid off after tax
tax
season?
Right? Unless you're the main CPAs, unless you run the firm. So I had to register with Job Connect to collect unemployment. So
right
it was up here,
Job Connect.
And so I was coming down the stairs and peeked into our old studio, which was across the hall, and saw a table full of literature and Nevada magazines. And Nevada magazine's $5 if you buy it off the shelf. They were free, so I'm cheap. So I walked in there and was picking some up and some extra literature. And Eddie Floyd and our former GM Chip Evans were sitting at a table there, and they said, "Hey, who are you? What are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, well, I'm Kelly Rush. I was just lost my job. I had registered for unemployment, and I was picking up some literature. And I noticed the mics on the table and, the banners and
looked pretty official.
Yeah, and I was kind of curious. I'm nosy, and I like mics. And I said, who are you? What do you do? And they said, oh, we're community radio. I said, oh, I used to do college in community radio back home. And we ended up talking for an hour and a half. And this was on a Friday. They said, come back Monday. We'll put you on the air. I've been here ever since.
I'll be darned.
So
very good.
Well, that was in your role as a host, but now you have.
So yeah, I started as a host with them, and it was just kind of volunteer for fun, and I did that, and then started picking up some administrative duties, helping out around the place, kind of things that just sort of, there was no real staff. It's we're a skeleton crew here, and the hosts have each host, it's their own business, so they come, do their show, and they leave. That's what that's the way it is.
That's
They're
what
not
we've
here.
been that's what we've been doing.
Well, yeah, that's what you do. That's the way it is. So we don't expect you to stay here and do station business. That's not that's not the way it works. So I had the time, and I was still waiting for my license, and massage practice isn't something you do 8 hours a day, 5 days a week anyway. And so I had the skills, and I've been running my own businesses and other people's businesses for many years. Well, that's what I do.
Right.
So
even employees do that, don't they? They run their employer's business.
So it just kind of happened that way. So then I ended up becoming. Chip moved on to other things, and I sort of ended up becoming GM for a while, and
that's a nice title.
Yeah, yeah, and so that was great. And then I had a catastrophic medical issue. I had an intestinal collapse, septic intestinal collapse.
I hate it when that happens.
And almost died in 2015. So that sidelined me for almost a year, and I kind of had to start all over again. So I came back in a very, very part-time role, and I'm also chronically ill. So okay, back up a little bit. I had to give up my massage practice. I have a chronic immune system disease, a genetic issue, and 5 different kinds of arthritis, scoliosis.
5 different types?
5.
Wow.
Didn't know there were.
There's over 100.
Wow.
Yeah, but fibromyalgia and multiple comorbidities that go along with all of that. So this was all discovered in the midst of me trying to practice massage. It all showed itself.
That was challenging.
Yeah. So throughout all of this, things shifted, and so anyway, I recovered, came back, started picking things back up again. And things were going great. We moved over here into this lovely new studio. And then I, a year ago, last month, had catastrophic lung surgery.
Oh, dear.
Lost my apartment, had to move in with my mom. Had another intestinal collapse and almost died.
Oh, gee.
And am now recovered from that and have been promoted to CEO.
You're so vibrant.
Yeah.
Challenging.
Despite all this.
Extraordinary circumstances.
Yeah. Well, either the mind-body connection is an amazing thing, and I have learned either you curl up and feel sorry for yourself and start dying, or you get the hell up and get on with it. I hurt 24/7 all the time. I have meds that I take that help mitigate it, and I just manage it. I do what I have to do to manage it. And then when I get home, I let myself do what I have to do, and then get out.
We all
I love this. I love you, and I need to be here so that you guys can do this and get the message out for free.
Yes.
We're glad to have you. It was great to have you today.
Yes, certainly.
To hell with Mark Amadei.
We've got Kelly Rush.
That's right. And join us again next week.